following takes place between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. Events occur in the Untitled.
Yes, that's right. Take it all in, everyone. That's right, this is FPC Radio Live, and we're live. It's Monday morning. And on November 22nd, 2021, the New England Patriots are officially back. The number one seed in the AFC East. Potentially the number one seed in the AFC. It's a good time to be alive, John. And I know people out there, you're either frightened or you're excited. And, yeah, you know what? I'm pretty excited, John, because seriously, all kidding aside, and I'm just going to let this play in the background because it brings me so much joy. The Patriots may be the best team in the AFC, and I said this a couple weeks ago, cautiously because, you were starting to see signs of it. You were starting to see glimpses of what they could potentially be, and considering the competition around them, there was potential. They shut out the Falcons 25-0 in a very impressive game. Over the last 5 games during their winning streak, they're allowing 10 points a game. That includes 24 allowed against Los Angeles Chargers in one of those games. So you can see that the majority of those games, they're allowing very few points. And their offense is scoring efficiently. They're running the ball well. Mac Jones is playing well enough for this team to play and win games. And you know what? At the end of the day, you look around this landscape of the AFC, is there a team that you trust more than the Patriots right now?
Not really. And actually, I put out my top 5 AFC power rankings earlier this morning at John Tap 25, cheap plug. I have the Patriots at number 1. I have the Chiefs at number 2. Actually, then I went with the Colts, Titans 4 and Bills 5. I almost said Texans after their upset win over the Titans. They actually outplayed them. I have the Patriots 1, Kansas City 2. We may be looking at yet another Patriots-Chiefs playoff game, AFC Championship game. I mean, it's tough to predict that because you don't know how things are going to work out with seeding and so forth. But no, they're playing excellent football. 5 in a row, as you said. The defense has really come together as a top unit, running the football effectively, finding an identity on offense. Mac Jones doing what he has to do, and then the special teams are always really good. You've got a kicker and Nick Folk who can be the difference, right? Because a lot of these close, these playoff games come down to the field goal kicker often, and, I trust that guy as well. So, yeah, no, I have them number 1 in the AFC. And again, I'm not a Patriots fan, so I'm pretty objective when it comes to this stuff. Right now, they look like the best team in the AFC with Kansas City second, but it's more with Kansas City's defense than its offense, which is kind of strange.
Well, and even with Kansas City, and you got to take it with a grain of salt because of some of the circumstances. Like we talked a couple weeks ago, and all of a sudden the narrative has shifted a little bit, part of this run. But that Packers Chiefs game, the Chiefs won that game because Aaron Rodgers was not on the field, and I don't think either of us would disagree with that. And I would imagine both of us would bet our life savings on that if we were both betting and crazy enough to do something like that.
I should be betting. I went 9-4 against the spread yesterday. I'm at 65% this year in the NFL. I should stop putting out college football picks, but my NFL picks have been good. I don't bet anymore. Maybe don't get me started. Because then what's going to happen next week. I'll go 4-9. But we agree the Packers won that game.
You're gonna be Kramer putting bets with my money and then trying to convince me to let it ride. That's what's going to happen.
Eddie Mush from
so let it ride. No, but
look,
no, look. I mean, so I still have my questions about the Chiefs, and at the end of the day, I mean, Patrick Mahomes still didn't play a great game last night. I know they won, and all that. It's like, and you got to understand too. I'm also taking the same tack that people take when trying to evaluate Tom Brady. So if you think it's unfair, why don't you take a step back and think about it? But the reality of it was 2 more turnovers. You can't completely fault him for that interception because again, it was another one that probably should have been caught. It wasn't. I mean, it was a little behind him, but again, you're Travis Kelce. You need to catch that football, so you can't completely fault him on that. but at the end of the day, it's kind of like it's like the kid who always breaks the rules. It's like maybe he didn't do it this time, but he's kind of lost that benefit of the doubt. You understand what I'm saying? So like it's hard for me to completely take all blame away because again, there's still things that he's doing that open up the possibility for those turnovers. It's still not really handling. Tight coverage well. Like he had a couple really nice throws yesterday, but again, any quarterback is capable of doing that. It's about doing it efficiently and consistently over the course of the season, and he still hasn't been able to do that. So there's still a little bit of carelessness in his game, and fortunately, the defense has been playing really, really well. Although, I mean, man, did the Cowboys stink? I mean, Dak was bad. I mean, I don't want to sit here and rail on Patrick Mahomes too much, but Dak stunk. I mean, I was very disappointed because I like Dak Prescott, and I do think he's a pretty good quarterback. He just looked out of sorts. Now, again, they were missing a lot of people, especially on the offensive side. Their top two wide receivers, essentially, once CD Lamb went down. So, but still, even then, some of the throws just he was off. He was just not setting right. The ball wasn't coming out right. So um,
He didn't have time. He really
yeah,
didn't. I mean, the pass rush for Kansas City was incredible yesterday. Chris Jones was the best player in the field. 3.5 sacks,
mhm,
forced fumble, recovered fumble, deflection, which led to an interception. I mean, he was all over the place, and he was doing that against a future Hall of Famer in Zach Martin. Now, the Cowboys didn't have Tyron Smith, and I jokingly put out yesterday maybe he should be in the MVP discussion because
yeah,
when he doesn't play, that offense doesn't move because I don't think Dak Prescott feels comfortable without that big, great left tackle who's a future Hall of Famer himself and Tyron Smith. Instead, you get Terrence Steele on one sack was late to the party. Like the
mhm,
ball was snapped and he just stood there. And yeah, there was Frank Clark just went by him and nailed Dak Prescott. So the offensive line was bad. Look, the Cowboys aren't ready for prime time, not necessarily on the players, and they had some injuries. Obviously, no Amari Cooper because of COVID, and then CD Lamb ends up with a concussion late in the second quarter. But that coaching staff just is not ready for prime time. I
oh
mean,
yeah,
first of all, to
yeah,
begin with, Mike McCarthy comes out, they win the toss. Every team in the league now defers, except Mike McCarthy decided he wanted the football to start the game rather than, deferring to the second half. That's a mistake, in my opinion. Belichick kind of invented this, right? Like 12, 13 years ago, and that's what everybody does. I think it's a smart move. And then after the taunting penalty on a Kansas City touchdown, instead of a 33-yard extra point, you make it a 48-yard extra point. Let them have the extra point. Use the 15 yards on the ensuing kickoff. I mean, you're only going to give up 1 point if he makes the field goal, but you can get better field position if they're kicking off from the 20 instead of the 35. And then, of course, they go ahead and kick the 48-yard extra point, and that penalty is useless. Like, that's another thing that he did. And then his time management's horrible. I mean, he's just not a very good coach. I think when you get into these tight games, big games, coaching is important. And that's why the Patriots have a chance, right? Because if we get to the postseason, you look at the coaching matchup, well, the Patriots are always going to have the advantage on the sideline.
yeah. And look, I don't think this is just an example of this Patriots team overachieving, but you add in the coaching aspect to your point. I mean, it,
Mm-hmm.
it gives them a very distinct advantage in this sense, and or in this situation because well, look, I mean, the AFC there isn't really a powerhouse. I mean, again, we watched Tennessee just really look absolutely so unlike Tennessee, but at the same time, you had to wonder was the loss of Eric Henry and then Julio Jones going to eventually catch up? And now I know Julio Jones was not the stat getter that he had been prior to this season, but even just being on the field, he adds an element to that offense that they didn't have before. Now they don't have that. They don't have um, Derrick Henry. AJ Brown left the game injured. I don't know exactly what the status of his injury is. So all of a sudden, you're putting all this on Ryan Tannehill, and I think you're seeing the difference between elite quarterbacks and elite stats because I think
Mm-hmm.
you can look at for the last couple of years and say, oh, okay, all right. His stats are impressive. I mean, you go across the board. All right, that's pretty good. But was it a product more of kind of just a nice, I hate using the word system, but nice situation? Or was it more Ryan Tannehill? Well, I think it's a combination of both. I think, again, a lot of people were kind of going a little overboard with Ryan Tannehill, myself included. I was pretty impressed with him, but at a certain point, you're going to figure out whether he's able to carry this team. And that first test against the Houston Texans was not a good one.
Mm.
And now you're going up against perhaps the hottest team in the league
Mhm.
in New England with pretty much the first in the conference at balance. I know Baltimore technically percentage points is technically ahead of the Patriots because they played one fewer game. It's just, I don't know how much I technically trust Baltimore. You know what I mean? Well, they're kind of a weird team to me, but like
Mhm.
for the most part, you're looking at the battle for the top seed between the Patriots and the Titans on Sunday. And who would have
And
thought
the
that?
Chiefs. Let's
Yeah.
not forget the Chiefs. They have the
Well,
same record as the Patriots.
the problem here's the problem with the Chiefs, and it's being overlooked, especially by guys like Nick Wright. They're 2-4 in the conference. That puts them
Right.
at a great
Yep.
disadvantage in all these tiebreakers. So the reality of it is, they not only would have to match what these other teams are doing, they would have to
Right.
surpass it. And I don't know if there's enough time. And they're certainly, again, impressive win yesterday. They're not playing good enough to do that. Is what my point is, and I'm pretty comfortable saying that they're not going to be able to make up that amount of time because
Unless they run the table, that's pretty much the only way they
do
could
you,
be the number one
but
is to
that's
run the table.
based on what we've seen this season. Do you think they're capable of doing that? Well,
I
hold
don't
on.
think anyone is in.
No,
I don't
no,
think
I
there's
don't
one
think.
team in the league that's even capable of that because it's just every week we sit there at midnight on Sunday and go, "What the hell did we just see today?"
Mhm.
Right? You kind of look and say, people thought Buffalo was good, and then Indianapolis went in and just destroyed them. I mean, we both picked Minnesota to beat Green Bay. That's not a surprise. Divisional game, Minnesota's got a lot of weapons. But then you look at these middling teams record-wise right now, like Minnesota, San Francisco, Philadelphia, and Indianapolis. I don't think anyone wants to play those teams. Those teams are
No,
playing
no.
really good football, right? So I think 19 of the 32 teams, Ian, have 5, 6, or 7 wins. Like, it's just this incredible swath of good, not great teams that on any given Sunday, to use the cliche, are quite capable of winning or losing.
Yeah, and look, I mean, excuse me. Who would have thought like some of those teams earlier in the season would be in that position? But all the Patriot included, because again, we talked about it
Mhm.
prior to the season. I think the expectations were tempered and rightfully so because there were so many uncertainties. But a lot of those uncertainties are becoming a little bit more certain. You talk about the
Mhm.
quarterback play, and it's like, at this point in the season, you're feeling pretty comfortable about Mac Jones under center. Now, again, you're still expecting development. That's not the like you can be happy and comfortable with his play and still expect him to develop. This
Right.
isn't like me believing this is his final form. So I want to clarify that there's still room for improvement because again, he's a rookie. He's a rookie.
Mhm.
He's going to be evolving, and you hope that he's a guy like Tom Brady who always got better every single year, not just, oh, okay, his rookie year got better and now he's good. No, it's you
Mhm.
want to see him evolve and get better each and every week, each and every year, so on and so forth. So, from the Patriots standpoint, it's getting harder and harder not to look at them and say, hey, they might be the best defense in the league. Do they have the most talented across the board? At specific positions? Maybe not. I mean, Matt Judon certainly has a case for being one of the best pass rushers in the league. He's been phenomenal. He registered a sack in the win over um, Falcons, which gave him a career high, which is absurd because they've only played 11 games. So, you know, and I talk about this Patriots defense and how all of a sudden they've become this attack the quarterback defense. They're on pace for about 44 sacks this season, which kind of puts them in those seasons they were really good on defense. That's kind of the number that they were at. Last year, they were down to 24 all season, which sounds crazy. Chase Winovich was the sack leader at 5.5. So,
Well, they
um,
weren't playing ahead. Oftentimes, sacks
exactly.
come when you're playing ahead. So now this team is playing ahead. That's the next big question for Mac Jones. How's he going to react being down 7 or 10 points in a tough situation? We'll find out. I'm sure he'll beat this one.
And here's the thing, and this is why you can kind of lean towards I think we're going to be okay with him because we kind of saw that against the Cowboys. Like there were a
Right.
lot of situations in that game alone that you say, hey, how do you respond to this? How do you respond being down with your back against the wall? How do you respond after making a pretty bad mistake? Talk about that pick six in that game. Well, he kind of checked a lot of those boxes. Now they didn't win that game, unfortunately, but um, those are the things that you can sit there and say, like, you know what? If their backs against the wall, I do kind of trust him. Doesn't mean it's automatic. This isn't, oh, hey, Matt Jones is getting the ball. Obviously, he's going down the field. This isn't a Tom Brady situation, but you're feeling comfortable. You're feeling good. This is a he can win the game situation if the opportunity presents itself. But
Mhm.
fortunately for the Patriots, they've been just so damn good these last several weeks. It really
Well,
hasn't
that's how
come
they're
down to
built.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. No, but get ahead, use the run game, be balanced on offense, unleash the pass rush. It plays into your secondary, which makes plays. Right, J.C. Jackson, is always among the league leaders in interceptions. So yeah, everything's fit perfectly for them. Yeah, I have them as the number one team in the AFC. I'm not saying they're going to the Super Bowl or that they're a clear cut favorite. Just
Yeah.
as of right now, they're playing better than any other team in the AFC, and I think Kansas City would be second because their defense has really stepped up. But good point there, Ian, that they're 2-4 in the conference, so they're going to have to win out and defeat all of the other teams, the other contenders in the AFC by one game to host the AFC Championship game or be the number one seed, whatever the case may be. This is the wildest year I can ever remember. I mean, we've only got one team with two losses, and that's Arizona, who's played the last 3 weeks with Colt McCoy, and they've won 2 out of 3
Yeah.
with Colt McCoy quarterback. And I still don't know if we're all bought into Arizona. I mean, 9-2, that's impressive. They're the only 2-loss team in the league. Then there's a bunch of 3 and 4 and 5-loss teams that are all playing at different levels. So this is completely wide open. I think part of it, Ian, is because it's a week longer this year, so it's 17 games as opposed to 16. The off seasons have been choppy the last couple of years. There's COVID, there's injuries. It's just it changes every single week, and it should make for a real exciting playoff run. In the next month and a half.
Yeah, and look, I mean, we haven't even. I was going to say, I kind of felt bad for your guy over in the NFC, kind of, but then not really because I did pick Minnesota to win that game, and I will take the victory as I come, and then of course, he's doing the injury campaigning already. I already know it, John. I already know it. You know him. I texted.
Great players have a tendency of doing that.
Yeah.
Jim Brown did it. So
Yeah.
if it's good enough for Jim Brown, then it's good enough for anyone else. That's what great players do. They pump up their injuries a little bit and make people hopefully feel sad or sympathetic towards them.
Or they're built in
fine.
excuses if ultimately things
No,
go awry.
he's fine. He had a nice scramble yesterday.
Oh, he did.
Even had a nice
That's kind of the point. Like, I mean, look, I kind of say this a little tongue in cheek. I'm just kind of ribbing you a bit, and I commend your political ability to deflect. It's really it's impressive.
as an Aaron Rodgers spokesman.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think he'd fit in quite well. But look, I mean, it's just who kind of Aaron Rodgers is. It's like if he has an injury, he's gonna milk. Look, Russell Wilson does the same thing. He stunk yesterday. I mean, Russell, I don't know what the hell's wrong with Russell Wilson. Actually, I kind of do, but we're not talking about him right now. We're talking about
they're blowing up that situation in the offseason, aren't they? I mean, if I'm Seattle, I'm like,
I would hope so.
Trade the quarterback, get rid of the coach, like start fresh. We have no draft picks to beat Carroll like Jamal Adams for 2 firsts and another player.
Yeah, I think the longer we go with this team getting further and further away from the Super Bowl, I think it's safe to say that this was a team that just kind of caught lightning in a bottle. And we've talked about it with Pete Carroll and coming right out of college and having kind of that edge when it come to evaluating talent and everything like that. I think it's safe to say that he maximized his advantage, and that's that. And Russell Wilson, as good as he is, he's good. That's it. He's not great.
I would disagree. I mean, obviously it's just semantics at this point. I think he's a very good quarterback, future Hall of Famer, all that.
Oh no,
stuff.
no,
But
no. I don't think he's a future Hall of Famer. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Absolutely.
I don't know about that. I mean, if his career,
ask Clark Judge. Ask Clark Judge when you talk to him later this week. I mean, Clark is always hesitant to start putting current players in the Hall of Fame, other than, of course, Brady and Rodgers. I think we agree will make the Hall of Fame on their first year of eligibility. But I mean, Wilson did win a Super Bowl, went to another Super Bowl, has been I would say an elite quarterback for close to a decade. look, he retired today. Maybe we can have that
Well,
conversation.
that's. I mean,
is his career really? I mean, I know he doesn't have the MVPs, which Kurt Warner has 2. So that's because Kurt Warner was a guy who got in, and I supported him getting in, but he didn't have a real long career. But while he played, he was damn good, and you can make a case he was the best player on the field in 3 different Super Bowls, although we only won one of them.
Was Russell Wilson ever the best quarterback in the league?
No, but neither was Drew Brees. I mean, you can get the Hall of Fame with less than that. Well, no, Drew Brees is a Hall of Fame.
Look, I agree. I do agree.
Now you sound like an old guy.
No. I do agree that Drew Brees ultimately will get in the Hall of Fame. I could make a now again. My perspective is I'm a very tough Hall of Fame grader. In my opinion, I think you should tear them all down and start from the beginning and redo it all, because I think it's in some cases it's getting oversaturated. Like and again, I mean there's plenty of guys out there, and trust me, I'm a little bit biased because I do hang around with a couple guys that have been around it for a while, but there are so many players out there that haven't and have been waiting for years, that like when someone says Russell Wilson and says, oh, he's a slam dunk Hall of Famer, I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, I would really have to.
I think we're projecting that he plays another 5 years at a high level.
But
the number will be
5 years at what, though? I mean, of what he is now? He's not playing at a high level now. If you get 5 years of this.
He's probably, again, I'm no Russell Wilson fan. You know that. Yeah. I think he's the most phony guy in the NFL. My guy, to me at least, is out front being an a-hole.
That's true.
Which is fine. I respect that. I think he likes being that, but then he always gets hurt when people criticize him. Like, if you want to be a full a-hole, a la Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, or Barry Bonds, then wear the black hat. Don't be that guy and then wonder why people criticize you. But I don't know if Russell Wilson should be playing. He ended up breaking the tip of his middle finger on his throwing hand. Probably
but he rehabbed 19 hours a day, John.
I know.
I mean, he's superhuman. He's
deprived.
A cyborg.
I said that. He
literally slept 5 hours, and like you can picture him eating his cereal, doing like hand exercises, and then going to the bathroom and doing hand. Look,
he's a hand model.
It's getting more and more exhausting having to deal with Russell Wilson, because at first you have to, and I was one of his bigger supporters, because I felt like, okay, maybe he's just kind of got a raw deal, but at the end of the day, it's like, okay, how much more of this ego trip or just complete? I mean, we've seen it before. The Mr. Unlimited. Are you like, how absurd is it to sit there and say that you rehabbed for 19 hours a day? Just say you rehabbed every day. Like that has the same effect, and you're not going to get people rolling their damn eyes at you, because you know damn well that he wasn't rehabbing 19 hours a day. It's physically impossible. So
he should have said 25 hours.
Yeah, you might as well. Mr. Unlimited +1.
Like I said, he was sleep deprived. He was only getting 5 hours of sleep a night instead of whatever, because he was either sleeping or rehabbing. No, I'm not a big fan of his. I do think he's a very good quarterback, and I think eventually will be a Hall of Famer. But again, I don't think he's
I don't think very good equals Hall of Fame. And that's
I think he's an elite. How about that? I think he's an elite quarterback.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
We'd have to define elite. That's the other thing.
Well, think about it. Think about all the talent.
One elite quarterback and then another guy who.
Think about all the talent. Think about all the talent he's had around him offensively. He hasn't been short of that. I mean, yeah, you can argue and sit there that they've made mistakes with the offensive line, sure, but he's.
On Lynch.
I mean, against that Packers game, in the NFC Championship game, I'm going to bring it up. I know it's a sore spot. 5 turnovers. 5 turnovers, and they won that game. And then he turns the ball over in the Super Bowl. So to me, I'm looking at it, okay, so that first Super Bowl, look, that was a defensive, absolute dominating game. They won that game the moment that snap went over Peyton Manning's head, and the route was on. There was no stopping it, whatever.
He was good in that run, though.
Yeah,
he was good in the NFC Championship game over San Francisco, which actually was probably
Joe Flacco was pretty good in his playoff run, perhaps the greatest playoff run of all time, and again, probably had more of a hand in actually winning the Super Bowl. So that's my point.
But
is Joe Flacco
we can
a Hall
agree
of
that
Famer?
Russell Wilson's a better. I don't think Flacco's a Hall of Famer. No, I think to get in without being considered a great quarterback, you need 2 Super Bowls, and that didn't even help Jim Plunkett. Jim Plunkett has 2 Super Bowls.
Great point.
And it's not. And I think Eli Manning and Ben Roethlisberger will both get in.
Well, Ben Roethlisberger, I think, would, because I mean he has had elite numbers for a long period of time, won 2
Yeah.
Super Bowls, went to 3. Eli Manning, again, I think by virtue of who he beat in the Super Bowl,
Yeah.
I think he
That's
gets
big.
in. If it wasn't the Patriots and Tom Brady, I think you could sit here and have a realistic argument that even those 2 Super Bowl wins aren't enough, and that's where I'm at with Russell Wilson. Yeah, Super Bowl win, great. Not every quarterback that's won a Super Bowl is in the Hall of Fame. Like you said, Tim
No.
Plunkett's a guy who's been waiting for a long time. There's other guys that are more deserving that have been waiting a long time. So I look at it and I'm like, okay, so what has Russell Wilson really done? Has he been one of the best or the very best of his generation, of his era at any given point during his run? And I say no. At best,
One of the best? Okay, now
no, no.
we're
Well,
getting
but
I
well,
don't
no,
think he's
no, no.
ever
I'm
been the
saying
best
okay,
quarterback in football.
but that's. I mean, as unfair as it sounds, to be a Hall of Famer, meaning the best of the best of the best, at some point you have to be the best at your position during your run, and I don't think
Yeah,
he's
but
ever
what?
been.
Okay. Let me do this. And again, I'm not a huge fan of Drew Brees either. Drew Brees happened to play
Well,
at the
look,
same time that Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, and
you're
Aaron Rodgers
I'm the
played.
wrong I'm the
He
I'm
was
the wrong
never going to be.
I'm the wrong
Yeah,
person to ask about that because I'm 50-50 on Drew Brees, to be honest with you, because I feel like, his claim to
you are
fame is
tough. You are Skip Bayless' son. You
no,
talk about
no, no,
the Hall of Very
look,
Good. Here's the thing: Kevin
how
Durant has
impressive,
never been the best player in
how impressive,
basketball. And
yeah, but he has MVPs. And
no, I
he's
get you. No,
performed
I'm with
in
you.
multiple playoffs. So that's a huge difference. Drew Brees' biggest claim to fame, outside of obviously winning Super Bowl, I'm not discrediting him for that, is accumulating yards in seasons in which they went 7-9 and he was throwing
I got you.
18,
I'm with
19
you.
interceptions. So like to
No,
me,
I'm with you.
that doesn't impress me. So outside of that, what is it? Well, he's never been an MVP, and I'm sorry, like just because you're going up against the greats, I mean, it's life's not fair. It is what it is. Like to me, I could sit here and make a case for Drew Brees not to be in the Hall of Fame.
You got to go on with Clark. That'll be good. I'd like
No,
to hear that
no,
conversation.
no.
And
Look,
I think
I'm
Clark
not.
probably agrees with you because
Yeah,
he's very, very hard too. No, it's a discussion. I don't look. I think the bar has been set low in all the Hall of Fames. I mean, Harold Baines is in the Baseball Hall of Fame. I mean, when
yeah.
I went there and I don't understand that. I don't. I mean, I know why it happened because Tony La Russa, you know, politics for him,
Mhm.
and La Russa's on the Veterans Committee, and those guys just do favors for each other. Put my guy in, I'll put your guy in. Ted Sizemore's in. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. Look, there's a bunch of guys. I agree with you on that. I think that you're a little harsher than I am on quarterbacks. Do you think Kurt Warner belongs in the Hall of Fame?
Yes, because again, he won MVPs, he set records. He was the last quarterback to win an MVP, Super Bowl MVP, and a Super Bowl in his same season, his rookie season. So, but so to me, that's a unique accomplishment that's unmatched by not is unmatched by very few. You know what I or the wording of that was kind of off. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
No, I know what you mean, though. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I do believe Kurt Warner is a Hall of Famer because again, you know he's accomplished. He's had enough to accomplish. You know what I mean? Like he's been there. He's won MVPs. He has the team success, the individual success. He's had the numbers. He's had elite numbers, not just high yardage, high interceptions. Because Jameis Winston threw 5,000 yards. Is anyone
Right.
impressed with a 30 and 38? No. Well, he threw 5,000 interceptions. I mean, well, maybe he threw 5,000 interceptions.
He may get there.
He may get there.
there.
Maybe the first quarterback ever to do that. But like I'm not impressed by his 5,000 yards because guess what? He had to because he constantly put them in a bad situation. And look, Drew Brees towards the end of his career, he really became a better caretaker of the football. But there was a stretch there, like I said, the majority of his 5,000-yard touchdown seasons. I'm going to try to pull it up, while we're talking, so I can reference it a little bit better. He was in the high near 20s. There was one season he threw 22 interceptions. Like, I'm
I think
sorry.
he's a 2-to-1 ratio guy, touchdowns to interceptions, which is okay. I mean, look, I like that
Which is
stat
okay,
because
exactly.
it favors my guy. My guy's 4.4-to-1, which is the best all time. That's one stat that we can look at. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, with Jameis Winston, he throws a pick six, then comes down and scores a touchdown, and everyone's like, "Oh, isn't Jameis great? He threw 80 yards worth of completions, and I'm like, well, he threw a pick six,
Yeah.
so he kind of negated whatever the hell he just did. So yeah, there's managing the game as well, and understanding all of that stuff. But that's what makes the elite quarterback. No, I'm harsh on it too. I just think that you keep putting guys in, and it's like now it becomes an argument of, well, so and so's in, then this guy's as good, so he should be in as well.
Well, and that's really kind of the flaw in everything. It's like, and we've talked about this on the eye test too, and this latest trend over the last 15 years or so of the first ballot trend, where like there are more
Right.
first ballots going in now more than ever, and it's like, it's like at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, but people
Still a
figure,
Hall of Famer,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
exactly. So, but the problem is, it's now really skewed in favor of what have you done for me lately, as opposed to some of the people that are, there are people that are on the all decade of teams of the 60s and 70s that aren't
Right.
in the Hall of Fame, which is just absurd. But unfortunately, because of the rules and how it's set up, they're lost in the senior pool, or they may not even be known by some of the people voting in that room. So um, so yeah, so when we sit here, and I'm with you, I think we can both agree that the term future Hall of Famer is used so loosely. It's nauseating to me. It's almost as sickening as the term GOAT, because they use it just as carelessly.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah.
that part, that's one that just because it's not logically correct. I mean,
Yeah,
greatest means one,
He's
singular,
one of the
greatest of all
goats.
time.
No,
Yeah, he's one of
no.
the goats. No, there's only one goat. This is not a farm we're on.
Yeah.
It's the first letter is greatest.
Well, I also think
You
I think future Hall of Famer across all sports really is thrown out. Like, I mean, people were calling Patrick Mahomes a future Hall of Famer after his first season, and I'm like, whoa, hold
Yeah,
on a
no, I
second.
mean
Yeah, like pump the brakes here. And like, when people are like,
well,
well, this, that, and the other, I'm like, okay, well, I'm not. If you were to ask me today, right now, and I guess you technically have asked me today, because this is why we're talking about it, is Russell Wilson a Hall of Famer? I'd say absolutely not. Absolutely not. And like, if he goes out and has a good rest of his career, and maybe he wins an MVP, or maybe he goes back to the Super Bowl, or maybe he puts up elite numbers for 5, 6, 7 years, who knows? Maybe that makes his case. But right now, I just don't see it. And there's plenty of people that are far more deserving. But again, the term future Hall of Famer will get thrown out like it's nothing. Like, like, oh, here comes future Hall of Famer Russell Wilson. I'm like, wait, what? Hall of Fame of what? Like Seattle sports, or what, Wisconsin, where he went to school? Like, no,
or NC State, he could
or
be in
NC
two.
State, yeah, maybe. I
He
mean,
could be in
okay,
two Hall
by
of
all
Fame.
means, if
Well,
you want to put him
he
in
could.
that, Hall of Fame of what was it, of fifth round picks that out competed Matt Flynn, sure, put him in that Hall of Fame. But as for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, you're telling me Russell Wilson, Mister Unlimited, is a Pro Football Hall of Famer right now? Absolutely not. I can't go down that road.
How about this? He's trending towards the Hall of Fame. Does that satisfy you at
No.
that point? Because
Well,
then
what is he trending towards?
we're talking about him now. We can't just wait till his career ends.
Well,
and
no.
then
Well, no. I mean,
that.
but that's the point. I mean, people use the term future Hall of Famer based on what they've seen. Like, what he's not a future Hall of Famer.
Trending.
Well, but I don't know. Is he trending this season? No, he's not. What makes me
No,
believe that all of a sudden, he's going to turn it around and figure it out? I mean, this is the same guy, and I said it before the season. I was like, look, this is a guy who is hot early in the season, and it's like a batter or a pitcher who gets to the third time in the rotation. Sometimes you just don't have all that, and that's what we've seen from Russell Wilson. He gets to the third time, 2.5 times, 3 times to the
mhm.
rotation. All of a sudden, I mean,
Oh, I'm with you in terms of him being overrated. I think he's overrated. There never seems to be much criticism of him, and I know there's criticism of my guy because he hasn't returned to the Super Bowl. At least he shows up in the NFC Championship game, which is better than losing in the wild card of the divisional round. I mean, Russell Wilson hasn't sniffed the NFC Championship game since 2014. So there's different levels of
You're-
accomplishments. Yes,
you're-
I'd like to see my
you're
guy
you're helping
get
you're
to
helping
another
my
Super
case,
Bowl, win
John.
another Super Bowl.
You're
No,
helping my
I'm
case.
with you. I'm like 99% with you. I think we're agreeing on it. It's just that I think the way it's set up now in the Hall of Fame, when I start to see, quarterbacks that are very good but maybe not great, it's we consider them Hall of Famers, that he's going to fit into that.
Okay, that's a difference.
Now, does that make two wrongs make a right? Maybe, I don't know.
No, in that case, I agree because I'm basing my opinion on my thoughts, and this is kind of how I look at the MVP race too. Is like I have certain beliefs on what the MVP probably should be, and I think we agree on that too. But we both recognize how it is actually voted on and won. Like I do. Do I value raw statistics? Absolutely not. You know, anyone who knows me knows that. But I understand that they're very important when it comes to MVP race. So, you know, I know guys like you know, Jonathan Taylor, 5 touchdowns yesterday, unbelievable, unbelievable, and he rightfully deserves to be mentioned in the conversation for MVP. I know Nick Wright's somehow bringing Patrick Mahomes into the mix, but the point is how is a guy like Jonathan Taylor, no matter what season he has, how is he going to win votes over a quarterback who's likely going to break the passing yards mark and also throw more than 50 touchdowns? So you know what I mean?
Well,
like that's almost an impossible already.
But don't in the same sense say I don't necessarily value raw stats, but how is he going to beat out a guy who's breaking a record? Like
I'm saying this is how the MVP is voted on. I'm not saying this is how I truly believe the MVP is. I'm just saying like I said last year, you know, you know, if you wanted to make it the most quote unquote valuable, it's kind of hard to make a case against Tom Brady, but I recognize why Aaron Rodgers won, and I think he deserved to win because well, the MVP is kind of a combination of that and stats. Like if you have really great stats, well, good chances are you're going to win the MVP. You know, especially if you're at the quarterback position. You know what I'm saying?
Especially if your team wins. That's also
well, I mean, look for the
if you're on a 10-7 team, you're probably not going to win the MVP.
Yeah,
the MVP generally goes to the best quarterback of one of the best teams.
Yeah, but if you're throwing over 40 touchdowns and 5,000 yards and turning the ball over perhaps fewer than 10 times, you're winning football games. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, there isn't a situation, I think, where that's the case, that a quarterback has that stat line.
I mean, Drew Brees, other than he did throw inordinate amount.
Yeah, well,
7 and 9.
But that's the reason why. Yeah. That's the reason why they were, because he did throw a lot. I mean, Tom Brady could end the season throwing 51 touchdowns, 5,500 yards, and have like 10 interceptions. And that's
MVP.
Yeah, I mean, you can't MVP, as great as Jonathan Taylor is, as great as all these other guys are, and I understand.
No, it's a quarterback's award.
Yeah, it's a quarterback's award, but it's impossible for anyone to really overcome that, just because, again, the record nature and everything like that. So, but again, I mean, you know, Tom, and this is the thing. We'll kind of spend the last few minutes here talking about Monday Night Football because we've killed a lot of time. It's been great. It's been fantastic. But I did want to mention Monday night. He's got to go out and perform. I mean, obviously, he had a mediocre game last week, but the reality of it is he can set himself so far apart from the rest of the competition by just going out and having a pretty good game for the rest of the season. Right now, he still leads the league in touchdown passes, and he's played one fewer game than most of the competition. And Patrick Mahomes is the closest, and he's played 2 fewer games by virtue of playing Monday night, obviously. So that, and then you factor in the yards. I mean, I think he's trailing yardage wise, I think, by like maybe just under 200. But again,
he'll go past that. Yeah, he'll lead the league.
Exactly.
They don't run the ball, so yeah.
They can't. They can't. They really
can't run the ball. So, which is smart. I can't run the ball. Let me throw.
Yeah.
Like Green Bay was trying to establish something yesterday, and it never worked. And next thing they said, "We'll just throw the football," and that seemed to work better.
Well, and look, they have the Giants today. So, you know, realistically, Tom should go out and have a pretty Tom Brady-like game, especially coming out. You don't expect them to struggle for a third consecutive week as a team. I think offensively, I think they were okay against the Saints. You know, certainly better than last week. But you know, Tom's just got to go out and have himself a Tom Brady game, and he's going to be in cruise control for this MVP award just by virtue of who he is, what he's done already, and the competition around him. So you know, this is a big
those other guys. I mean, Dak had a horrible game yesterday. I mean, actually, at this point, I would say the closest quarterback to him might be Rodgers. I mean, because he was. If they had been able to win that game yesterday, you know, they would have been 9-2, best record in football, and his passer ratings approaching 110. He was electric yesterday. I mean,
that was the
yesterday.
best game of his of the season yesterday. And I
He looked spectacular.
I did feel bad for him. He was a little shaky at first. I think that offense was a little. I don't know what it was. They were just a little out of sync. You know what I mean? Like slightly off.
I have a theory on that. Last year they were so good on the scripted plays. They constantly scored on their first drive of the game. This year they're not. Missing practice matters.
Yeah,
when you miss practice, I think it takes a little time to get going. Once he started going, and the first touchdown pass to Degora, whoever the hell that guy is, it just like he just took off from there. He started to really, cook. Yeah, no, that was his best game. He looks fine. So the takeaway from that game is the offense should be fine, but they just have so many freaking injuries. I mean, Elton Jenkins is now probably out for the year. One of the most, if not the most versatile offensive linemen. Yeah, but I mean, right now, I'm sure tomorrow we'll cover the quarterbacks. Brady, Rogers are the two best quarterbacks in football again.
Yeah, no, and look, that's why it's silly to overreact week to week because law of averages. The two best quarterbacks are always going to be the two best quarterbacks, and they've been the two best quarterbacks for quite some time. It doesn't. It means that hey, they may have an off game. I mean, they're human. That's what happens. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden, they've lost everything that they've had. That's why I always thought it was funny that people would, were so quick to say, "Oh, Patrick Mahomes in 2018 was already the best quarterback," and I'm like, wait a minute, did Tom Brady get stupider? Did he did he start over and lose some of that intelligence that he have? In which case, then maybe you're right. But at the end of the day, it's hard for any quarterback to surpass, and we see it every single week. There's no player that plays so consistently and so well that they warrant being put in the conversation above either of those two. Because we see it every week. Dak Prescott, he was the big guy. He was the guy that, he's half Tom Brady, half Aaron Rodgers, and half Peyton Manning. And I understand that math doesn't work out, but if you're a South Park fan, you understand the reference. Okay? So, and then all of a sudden he looks pedestrian yesterday. And for the most part, not that good yesterday. So Matt Stafford, the guy that was being held back by all the talent in Detroit, is all of a sudden looking exactly like he did in Detroit. He's a guy who is capable of doing great things, but then he's capable of boneheaded things. Baker Mayfield, it's hard for me to even judge who he is because I think he's injured, but at the same time, it's hard for me to forget what he has been, which has been an okay quarterback. He was the next big thing. How about, your guy Justin Herbert's doing pretty well unless he plays Bill Belichick. He looks pretty good. He's still a young guy. So
I think of the young guys, I still think he's got a lot of the things we like, right? I mean, I think first, I appreciate running more than you do. I mean, he looked like a tight end on a couple of those runs. I mean, if he didn't work out as a quarterback, they could have put him at tight end. He's so big and fast. But I think
that water up in Eugene, Oregon.
Oh man! Well, the hair. I mean, the hair is just spectacular. I mean, that's. I think that's why I picked him as the hair of Aaron. Oh my God! It is spectacular. And it's real.
Yeah.
But I think. But I just those two guys. And I'm watching that game yesterday with Minnesota and Green Bay, frustrated because they can't get off the field. And boy, Justin Jefferson's a stud.
Oh God!
Oh my Lord! I mean,
yards, was it?
Oh, he was spectacular. Joe Burrow, I love Joe Burrow at Cincinnati. In college, he had Justin Jefferson and
Jamar Chase,
the other receiver, Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
Like, how the hell is that? Like, when they played Alabama, there were like 6 first-round wide receivers from the field that day. And not to mention, like, Trayvon Diggs was out there as a cornerback. So there was a lot of talent. I mean, those schools recruit great, skilled guys. But I'm watching that game yesterday. I'm like, imagine if Rodgers and Brady just played in domes. Like, if they played their entire career in a dome, like, Drew Brees more than Manning. Manning, we both love Peyton Manning as a quarterback.
Yeah,
we think Brady's greater, but we both understand the greatness of Peyton Manning. And he played in a dome, and then Denver, half the year the weather's nice, the other half it's really unpredictable. But imagine Brady and Rodgers in a dome. I mean, that touchdown pass to Marquise Valdez-Scantling, the 75-yarder. Oh my Lord,
that was nice. Well, but again, and that's why, like I said, at the end of the day, this best quarterback in the league, it's not a fluid thing. Every players win MVPs every year. Lamar Jackson won an MVP. No one's sitting there in their right mind saying he's the best quarterback in the league. You appreciate his talent and how great he can be, but no one's sitting there saying he's the best quarterback in the league. You know why? Because the two guys that have been for quite some time, and it's not going to change. And,
Mhm.
and based on what we're seeing this season, it's clearly not changed. And like I said, I mean, Patrick Mahomes was supposed to be the second coming of the guy who invented the forward pass. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing. And all of a sudden, he looks
Early
like
Lambo.
yeah, exactly. He looks like just the guy, just a guy.
Yeah.
And look, I'm not sitting here trying to downplay his athletic abilities. There's certainly some, but athletic ability doesn't equal quarterback skill. And unfortunately, people out weigh athletic ability far too much versus the other traits that define great quarterback play. And the guys that have perfected those traits are the two old guys. And it's not just because they're old, it's because they've been great since the day that they stepped on the football field, and it's never changed. And they've only gotten better and better as the years go on. And here we are looking at, yeah, okay.
I wonder what they say too, because I think they probably, if they have a private conversation, is like, yeah, we're still pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, remember a couple years ago when they were going crazy about Mahomes
Yeah,
and certain
and
throws,
Rodgers,
and
yeah.
goes like,
I
I've
love
never
that.
thrown
I love
that pass. Yeah, it's just he really doesn't have a filter, which is one of the reasons I like him. I think he's the most interesting guy in the league. But yeah, if they have a private conversation, I know they're pretty good friends. They probably are like, hey, don't forget about us. We're still pretty good.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You have to have that confidence if you're going to be great like that.
Yeah.
And you know what? It doesn't. Again, at the end of the day, this is more of a discussion about the state of media and fandom, because that's really where a lot of this originates. And you get there's a fine line now. It used to be a pretty nice separation of church and state, but I
Mhm.
feel like it's too much mixed now. It's too mixed where you get, again, guys like Nick Wright going up there talking about Patrick Mahomes is into the MVP race, and it's like what yeah, that zero touchdown, two turnover, mediocre game that was clearly won by the defense. That's certainly the game that's really going to put him over the edge. It's just there's no consistency in how these people are covered, so we get these mixed messages when, again, at the end of the day, we can sit back, John, you and I, and go back and say, you know what? All this craziness, all these thoughts, all these theories, all these, projections, everything like that, the answer's simple. The two old guys that have been doing it the longest and been doing it at the highest level are still the two best. I don't care about the age. People every year, it's, oh, well, Brady's 42 now. Well, he's 43. Well, I don't care. Clearly, that doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter, no.
Yeah, like people lean on that so much, and I sit there and I'm like, it doesn't. It's just a number. Like literally, it's just a number. It's clearly just a number in this situation. So if you're still leaning on that, well, good luck, because you have nothing else to
We're like
say.
the two old guys sitting on the park bench,
Yeah.
lamenting today's music and go, "There's nothing like the Beatles and Stones."
Well, again, when the Stones are still touring, I mean,
I know.
Mick Jagger
The
go out and
Stones
do a
Tom
live
Brady,
show like
right?
last week.
Yeah. No, Mick Jagger is Tom Brady. I don't know. He's 80 years old. He's still touring. He's still got women all over. I mean, God bless him.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I don't even have the energy for that now, let alone when I'm 80 years old. But yeah, it's like, to me, it's the answer's simple. When you get past all this like crazy nonsense debate shows and overreaction social media, then you get to the meat and the potatoes of it, and it's like, oh, okay, no, it's obvious the two best quarterbacks in the league have and are still Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. And on that note, John, real quick, Giants, Bucks tonight, and then we're going to say goodbye.
Bucks in a high-scoring game. I think the Giants may cover the 11 points. In fact, I put that out as one of my picks, so I think it's going to be closer than most people expect, but expect the Buccaneers to win.
Yeah, me too. And the Bucks defense is allowing nearly 24 points a game, so they're certainly capable of giving up some points, which means Tom's going to have to throw the ball a lot. And I do see him doing that, and I see him having a pretty solid game. So give me the Bucks in this one. And tomorrow we will be back. We'll talk more quarterbacks. We'll maybe talk some more MVP, and then maybe we'll talk. And I know you're happy, but in the back of your mind, you realize we didn't even get a chance to talk about LeBron James. Tomorrow we will talk about
Escape.
The escape artist, the Mr.
Mr. Unlimited.
Yeah, Mr. Unlimited in his own right, Mr. LeBron James. LeBron flop, LeFlop, whatever you want to call him, Le Complaint. I saw that. That was pretty good. That was a good one. And then, Yeah, so that should be fun. So enjoy, get some rest tonight, John, because you're going to be in for it tomorrow. Have a great day, folks, and we'll talk to you then.